Okay, I am now recording. Give me a second and I'll just make sure I have my screen presenting here. All right. Hi, everybody. We're here today to talk about digital transformation via collaborative product visioning. Excuse me. And while Stratosphere is a conference about work in the cloud and DevOps, this presentation is not specifically about those topics, but rather it's more geared towards change. And the journey to the cloud is certainly, for most government departments, about change, if nothing else. So I wanted to get into a talk here specifically about kind of switching mindsets from project management type work in the government to product management type work. And a specific aspect of that is building out a product vision. And I'm going to get into how we built out a product vision for some work the Code for Canada Fellowship did with Transport Canada. So who am I? Hi, I'm Keith Colbert. That's me in the middle here. But I wanted to include a picture of my fellowship team because really a lot of the work that I'm talking about here today is a team effort, of course. So I'm a product manager, and I'll get into a little bit more about what Code for Canada is in a minute. So what we're going to cover today. Oh yeah, just as a quick shout out, that's a UX designer there to my right, and that's a developer, Alex, to my left. The UX designer is Kay. Great teammates. So yeah, what we'll cover. I'm going to go over quickly what Code for Canada is. I'll talk about our partnership with Transport Canada, specifically with the Marine Safety and Seafarer Certification Group. I'll get into a little bit about the problem space, about the area we're working in. I'll take us through a little bit of a discovery phase roadmap. I'll talk a bit about what discovery is, of course, and about the work that we've done so far and the things we've uncovered. And then I'll get into the actual bones of the workshop itself for the product vision. So what's Code for Canada? It's a national nonprofit. It connects government innovators with the tech and design community. Its fellowship program is its flagship program, and the fellowship program, which I am a part of, what it does is embeds 3 digital professionals inside a government department, can be provincial, municipal, federal, to work on a specific problem, hopefully introducing new processes and tech along the way. Basically, what we really want to do is build digital capacity inside a government. So let me set a little of the context. Here we have our awesome teammates that we are working with together at Transport Canada. We're called the Ninja Turtles because we're in marine safety, and each Scrum team within marine safety has a marine type name. So there's a team Kraken, there's a team Narwhals. I guess our team already, expanded on the idea a bit and added the ninja part. So yeah, we've got a multidisciplinary team that we already joined, which was kind of unique for the fellowship. Typically, fellowship teams that work adjacently, whereas we work directly on a Scrum team with a number of developers, a UX person who's already there, a product owner, and a Scrum Master. So what about Transport Canada? Well, Transport Canada, at a very high level, they look after transportation policies and regulations in Canada. They ensure safe and efficient, oceanways, airways, railways, our road systems, and so on. What about marine safety and security? So within Transport Canada, we're working at marine safety and security, like I mentioned, and they develop and enforce regulations specifically related to training, testing, and certifying marine personnel. And the area we're working on is seafarer certification. And what a seafarer is essentially anybody that works on a commercial vessel in Canada and some internationally. So why does this matter for us? So a few examples. Economically, like 80% of the world's trade travels by sea. So it's a huge impact there, making sure that the personnel working on those ships are certified. And according to this one survey from Transport Canada in 2017, 55 million passengers traveled by ferry in Canada in 2015. So there's a big societal, social, aspect to this as well. Connecting people, keeping people together. So the Seafarer certification process, we found out that it's quite a large and complicated process. It involves a lot of different pieces. And here's an example of what one certification might require. So this is for a first-class engineer for a steamship. So you have an exam portion there. You can write up to 25 exams for this certification. You need to take 10 training courses, have 5 years qualifying service. So most certifications you need to already have worked in the industry for a while in some other capacity, and a medical piece. And while that one medical piece might look small, it's actually quite a huge and involved piece on its own. So let me talk a little bit about our problem space now. So like I mentioned, we have a few challenges with this space being such a large and complicated process. So some of these challenges include that seafarers must visit Transport Canada Regional Office. It's a completely paper-based process. There's nothing online, and information is tricky to find and often hard to understand. So when we first started, we came up as a team and we wrote our problem statement together. And if you're not familiar with the problem statement, it's basically it's a definition of you kind of want to get concise here and specific about a specific problem that you're going to try to address through research before you start building your prototypes. So our early problem statement, which we iterated on later, and I'll get to that, is that I'm a current or prospective seafarer trying to obtain my credentials, but I must travel to medical or regional offices because I only have the option to apply in person, which results in the burden of costing me time and money. So we were really focused in on, that having to go in person into the office. That is a burden for many people. They travel many hours in some cases. Nothing's available online. So what have we done so far? So I'm going to get into our product roadmap. Let me just switch and check and switch the tab. Okay, there we go. So this is a Miro board. It's like an online canvassing tool, canvas tool, a whiteboard tool. And if you're not familiar with the roadmap, it's basically, it's like a high-level overview of the work to come over a period of time. So you don't want to get too specific. Like, probably don't want to say like, okay, on August 5th, I'm going to deliver this deliverable kind of thing. So switch to product management. A more flexible roadmap is kind of a hallmark of that. So this is our discovery. We actually have two roadmaps here. One's for alpha, which we're currently in right now, alpha phase. Oh, and if you're not familiar with product lifecycle, we kind of go through a discovery phase first to learn about the problem and to do some research. And then once you kind of have an idea that you want to start testing out, you can move to an alpha phase, start iterating on prototypes there. Once you start refining your minimum viable product, then you can move into a beta phase. And eventually, once all your assumptions and hypotheses you seem to be being met, and you feel confident, and you've iterated on done a lot of usability testing, you can eventually move live. So yeah, let me quickly get into the roadmap here. So we started in February, and our discovery phase lasted but specifically 13 sprints across the top here. So we started basically forming as a team, coming together, working out team agreements, started doing some research planning. We were getting ready for research. Oh, but then COVID-19 hit. So we really had to pivot. We started, we could no longer go and do research in person, which we were planning on doing. So we adjusted. We started to work out some service blueprinting, which is kind of like a high level overview of the touch points of a service. So by touch points, I mean where the users are going to interact with the service. And that way you can help identify deficiencies and so on. But then we were like, okay, well, time's going. We need to do some research. So we said, let's pivot and do remote user research, and we got approvals for that. And that took a while, of course, like anything else in government. Attempting to recruit, we did some recruitment, and then finally we did a lot of interviews and we did surveys. Then we synthesized on that research, and then we got into the visioning and ideation, which I'll get into a little bit more, of course, with the workshop. So yeah, the roadmap, there's a number of swim lanes here. We have team things such as team working agreements, capacity building, like I mentioned, learning both the fellows learning from Transport Canada and us, hopefully instilling some learning in our teammates. Then there's a product area, which I touched on: the problem statement, the roadmap, a lot of backlog grooming, and a lot of prioritization, those kinds of things. There's a development swim lane, which included prototyping, technical research, technical infrastructure. And below that, we've got our research swim lane, which is research planning. We're doing environmental research, which is, what do other countries have to offer that we can learn from in similar spaces. Organizational research, what other teams are doing at Transport Canada. Maybe we can learn from them. And of course, user research. And then the last swim lane is a design lane, and that's basically, like we mentioned, the stakeholder mapping and service blueprinting and so on. So let me just go back to my slides. Okay. So yeah, after we went through this discovery phase and did a lot of our research, we found out, like, okay, wow, this is quite a large space. Maybe we do need to revise this problem statement, because we've also got feedback from at Sprint Reviews as well that the space is much bigger, and so we had been thinking about ways to iterate on it, and we came up with this framework called the IRCP framework. And what does that mean? It's the I is ideal. So what's the ideal situation? Well, everything would be maybe online, working seamlessly. All the users would be delighted, and Transport Canada would also improve efficiency, say. But what's the reality of the situation? Well, the reality is that, like I mentioned, everything's paper-based. There's delays. There's sometimes work being duplicated, those kinds of things. What are the consequences of those realities? Well, seafarers have to travel long ways to go in person to apply. Staff are burdened with a lot of paperwork and so on. And then finally, a proposal. Well, how do we choose to address this? Well, our proposal in this case was, okay, we're going to do our research, and then we're going to come up with a number of different ideas to propose to our stakeholders for everyone to make a joint decision about the way forward for a minimum viable product. Okay, so now let me get into the product visioning workshop. So everything before was kind of leading up to, okay, now we're getting ready to move into alpha, figure out what our minimum viable product is, and go from there. So before we wanted to do that, we wanted to build out a product vision to help kind of guide us along the way. So overall, what is the process of this workshop? So I broke it down into 3 parts. The first part would be setting the scene. The second part would be actually like kind of brainstorming and workshopping ideas. And then the third part would be a refinement of the key ideas that will come out of the workshop to build our vision statement around. And I would do that with the product owner. So part 1, the setting the scene, like I mentioned, I'm going to take us through a lot of these steps, but this is what we met as a team. And this is the first part that we went through. We went through what the objectives of the workshop were going to be, what a product vision is, why we care, some examples. We went through our context and shared our research, all the while, trying to prepare the participants to think in the product visioning mindset based on research. And finally, we used a storytelling approach to try to ground that research in a human-centered approach. And then I took the participants through a warm-up exercise to get them used to the format, because we couldn't meet in person. So we did an online collaboration, and I'll show that in a minute. So what were the objectives? They were to capture key attributes of the experience you want people to have with your site or product. And then after that, we wanted to build out, based on these attributes and qualities, what are expanded key ideas that we can take from those attributes. So what is a product vision? Well, a product vision, I'm sure most people have heard of some kind of form of a vision statement. A product vision or product vision statement quite simply describes the overarching long-term desired state of your product or products. Why is it important? Well, it helps you develop a better product roadmap. It improves your strategic decision-making process throughout the development phase, and it'll help you align teams and stakeholders across the organization. So what are some key aspects of an effective vision? Well, hopefully it's aspirational. You want to change lives and improve people's lives with your products. It has boundaries, like I kind of alluded to before, and those boundaries, basically constraints that you're working under. We're not superheroes, so it can't solve everything. You want it to be a guide when you're feeling unsure, like, okay, let's go back and look at our vision and keep that in mind as we're building out our products. We want it to be actionable. So that means, okay, it's not too grandiose. This is actually something, okay, we can build something here. We want it to be linked to user and business needs, both. There's a fine balance there often. And we want it to be informed by data, of course. And hopefully we're going to inspire some emotion and make someone feel something when they read it. So when I think of product vision, the analogy I like to use is a bowl of fruit. And I would share this with the participants to try to get them thinking of an end state versus a minimum viable product type beginning state. So as we were thinking, like, okay, this is a really big problem space and there's a lot of different pieces, we're probably going to be looking at multiple products here. So our product vision, I like the fruit bowl because, you've got some big juicy items like your pineapple, your mango, and so on. But there's also small items, like there's a few grapes and some strawberries, and maybe the minimum viable product is a kind of an unripened strawberry that you need to iterate on and grow. So I'm going to go through some examples now of some famous companies' product vision statements, vision statements in general. Here's Nike. They want to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. So very aspirational, every athlete. And their definition of athlete is included. If you have a body, you're an athlete. Google's to provide access to the world's information with one click. So very simple, but again, very, very, very aspirational. All the world's information. How about Amazon? Amazon wants to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, to build a place where people can come and find and discover anything they might want to buy online. So again, wow, anything you might want to buy, you can get at Amazon. That's their goal. Here's a very simple one from Disney, simply to make people happy. Very, very interesting. Here's quite an opposite one from Coca-Cola. Very huge. I'm not going to go through and read it all, but they're touching off on several different points: profit, people, partners, their impact on the planet, and so on. And I just show this contrast to say that, okay, your vision doesn't have to be any specific kind of, doesn't have to adhere to a set of phony regulations type thing. It can be whatever you want. Another one from Apple here, to produce high quality, low cost, easy to use products that incorporate high technology for the individual. I don't know about you, but I don't know about that low cost part. So what about in Transport Canada Seafaring? Well, what's our context? Well, some things that we wanted to remember, and I wanted the participants of this workshop to remember, were the research. So what do the insights point to? And we'll get to those in a minute. We want to remember that there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. There's headquarters staff, regional office staff all across the country, seafarers, both prospective and current, and marine medical staff as well. There's a lot of what they call marine medical examiners involved in this process, and those are doctors that have been certified by Transport Canada to give these medical exams to potential seafarers. Like I mentioned, there's probably multiple products and services that we're thinking of here. Many things to consider. There's both business needs and priorities and the IT needs and priorities. I mean, if you're working in government, you probably know that Usually, in most departments, there's a business side, and then there's the IT side, and never the two shall meet, shall they say. But so you have to kind of balance those needs and priorities. And of course, the vision can change, can be iterative. So whatever we were doing here today in this workshop, in the day I gave the workshop, is that, hey, it doesn't, just because we're building this now doesn't mean we can't change it later. So here's was a kind of a cheesy slide that I shared with my team about our insights. So after we conducted a large number of interviews with seafarers, with a number of surveys, we distilled down our information, we synthesized it into insights. So if you're not familiar with research synthesis, basically what we do in this instance is, so you do all your interviews and your surveys, you have a bunch of findings. So you got all this data. And then you want to take that data and kind of start to figure out what the themes are, start to do some what we call affinity mapping, putting things together in their same areas into themes. And then you kind of want to read into those themes like, okay, what's this really telling me here? And then once you can garner something from that theme that you've learned, that's an insight. So for instance, some of our insights were, I won't go through and read all these, but and this was like kind of a celebration slide because it took us a long time to get here, most of discovery, in fact. So yeah, there's a lack of standardization in the process. So one thing in one office in BC might be completely different than something in St. John's, say. There's inflexible and time-consuming manual processes. Like there's nothing really digital about this. Well, we're starting to get there, but slowly coming along with that. It's difficult for staff to find and understand and appropriately address, so staff and seafarers. So finding the information and making sense of what you need to apply is difficult. Often the burdens outweigh the ease, and people get frustrated and maybe try to figure out different ways to do it, or drop off completely. A stakeholder buy-in and a co-designed approach, we found out, is going to be very important moving forward. There's a disconnect in the realities between the way things actually are in the industry and maybe the regulations are maybe a little bit older, say, or a little less accurate. And finally, there's a lot of expertise here that we need to leverage the backgrounds of these people, staff and seafarers alike, and marine medical. So then I won't tell the story, but as I alluded to earlier, like during the workshop, I had wrote a story taking what we learned from research and kind of putting it into, I guess, what you would call a persona, just so that the participants would have a chance to realize, okay, there's a human impact here, and how can I help solve these user needs, these problem points. Then we went through the warm-up exercise, which was basically we broke into partners, came up with 2 or 3 boundaries, like maybe it was a government policies, maybe it's budgets, things like that, that we have to keep in mind. Then we met back and we shared that out. And then we used these later to refine and expand our ideas. So what about a little bit more about boundaries? Some of the examples were like places the project must not go, like I mentioned, the policies, changes that can and can't happen, obstacles and points of frustration. So then we got into the second part of the workshop, which was actually the brainstorming itself. So for that, I'm going to go back into Miro and let me again share this tab instead. Okay, so here's our product vision Miro board. Over here was the boundaries part. So where people worked at first just taking sticky notes. Like I wanted to get people used to using the tool and so on. So this was a good exercise to do that. Oh, and this whole workshop format I had found online, and I can share that reference as well as an appendix in the slides. Yeah, so like I said, some of the examples here were like government policy, maybe blocking, a lot of different products and needs, budgeting, change and transformation management is difficult, things like that. So then I had, as the start of the second part of the workshop, I had the participants kind of, I went through the instructions with them about what we were going to do, but I'll take us through that real quick here. So this grid here in the middle, I had a section for each of our team participants here. where we all went through, and I asked the participants, think about yourself as a user or a potential user of this product or something in this space based on what we know from research. And what are some qualities that you would like to see in the product? And then based on those qualities, how do they make you feel? What are some feelings? So I didn't want people to just blindly have to come up with that. Over here in this alley area, I kind of gave them some examples of, okay, here's some emotions to help inspire them. There's several, like there's happy type ones, anxious ones, and hopefully like none of these negative ones that they want to feel in a product, but energized, confident, things like that. Then there's system attributes and qualities. So these are basically the technology type ones. What do you want to see in a product, like scalability, operability, things like that, fault tolerance. And then, of course, humanistic qualities. So like reasonable, respectful. Obviously, some of these would apply and some not. It's meant as an inspiration for the participants. So yeah, so we went through that. And then after everybody took some time to put up their sticky notes for this, or virtual sticky notes, I should say. We then got into another affinity mapping exercise. So like I said before, that's where you kind of take similar ideas, put them together to come up with themes. So down below, what we did then was once we got them all together, we did a voting and a prioritization on the most important themes, or sorry, the ones that resonated with people the most. So like these, we did a voting dot exercise. So if one resonated with you, you would place a dot on it. So you can see some of the popular ones are like user friendly, simple, empowered. We wanted people to feel. So then once we had these ones identified, we wanted to come up with some key value kind of like statements for each one of these qualities and attributes. So I went through some of these examples from a photo sharing app. So they had voted up trust. So trust that your photos are in good hands. So we just want to expand on the idea of that quality and so on. Like there's pride that comes with sharing a good photo, things like that. So as you can see, our team then started building it out, ensure efficient interaction and processes, an integrated suite of tools and services, things like that. So after we did that, we then had, okay, like I said, then we would move back into the third portion of the workshop, where the idea would be for the product manager and the product owner to get together, take all these expanded key ideas, and then build out our product vision that we can use going forward. So I'll get back into my slides. Okay, that's good. And so now a drum roll. What was that vision going to be? There's our product vision statement for Transport Canada Seafarer certification. We came up with, as a team, an integrated set of tools and standardized services that evolve to meet the changing needs of users, leaving them feeling empowered through their ease of use and efficiency. So this is our actual, now our product. Like we said, it's probably going to be a product suite. So it's a set of tools and standardized services that we have to help us moving forward as we move through alpha and beta. And hopefully the team at Transport Canada can use this to build out their tools long after the fellows have gone. So that is an example of kind of switching mindset from project management to product management, and a specific example of how you can build out a product vision using a collaborative workshop. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I'm really thankful that I was able to have this opportunity, and I hope it was interesting and hopefully helpful. So thank you very much. Bye.